Hello, welcome to Dio Relation Tales. Please subscribe my channel. Is it possible that an unexpected encounter with an enigmatic masked man ends badly? Today I will tell you what my story was with an unknown man who turned out to be my distant cousin. My name is Cassandra, and this is the kind of story they don't tell you in books, a story of a fleeting and forbidden romance that gave free rein to my deepest desires. It all started when my parents decided to celebrate their wedding anniversary with a party. That year they would celebrate 30 years of marriage, and they wanted to celebrate in a big way. At first they weren't very clear about what the theme of the party would be, but one night my mom and I watched a romantic movie, and we liked the idea have a Gaia party, but wearing masks. The idea was great, and we were attracted to the concept of maintaining anonymity. Plus, since it would be a family party for adults, we wouldn't have to worry about anything. 2 months after the event, my mother started organizing the party, sending invitation letters, establishing the attire of the guests, and emphasizing the mandatory use of masks. It would be a masquerade party, and black would be the color to wear. My father had rented a party room from a 4-star hotel, and we had already paid for a banquet to guarantee food. The whole family had been invited, including distant relatives or politicians I didn't know, so the prospect of spending a dream night excited us. When the day finally arrived, my parents booked a room for their honeymoon weekend. The party would be at night, so I took the whole day to prepare. I hadn't shown anyone my dress, nor the reddish wig I planned to wear. My mask covered half of my face, so I would complete my outfit with scarlet lipstick. Everything was ready when I drove to the hotel, and a text from my mother told me that several relatives had arrived. I hurriedly got out of the car and gave my name to the reception so they could tell me where the lounge was. After a brief tour through several rooms and a long hallway, the music began to be heard. At the back of the nightmare were 2 glass doors decorated with black silk tulle. There was a protocol man at the door, and he welcomed me. When I arrived, inside was everything I imagined. I walked around the room, passing from one side to the other without greeting anyone. The poor lighting made it difficult to identify my family, so I went to the bar and ordered a sweet strawberry-based drink. From there I was able to identify my parents at one of the tables. There were several people, and I was able to recognize my grandparents and a couple of aunts that I hadn't seen in years, but no one knew that I had arrived, so I wanted to take advantage of the anonymity that the wig gave me to enjoy the party without having my parents behind me. For a while I was alone, trying the different drinks that the bartender prepared, and when I had enough I left my wallet on one of the tables and joined the crowd of people dancing the Horo Loa. I felt happy, free. The guy who made the drinks had gotten my phone number, but I wasn't looking for a one-night stand, or at least that's what I thought for a while, until I ran into clear eyes clouded with something I couldn't identify on the other side of the floor. Right at one end of the bar was a man dressed in a black suit. His tie was undone, and the top buttons of his white shirt were unbuttoned. He didn't look old, so I concluded that he must be contemporary with me. Suddenly the mysterious man raised his glass towards me as if he were toasting in my honor, and took a deep drink until he finished the drink. I froze watching him, but after coming out of my stupor I decided to ignore him and continue dancing. However, my mind kept recreating that impressive man who looked like something out of a movie, so every time my eyes passed over the bar I looked for the mysterious hottie who had been looking at me like I was the most beautiful woman at the party. The drinks had blinded my conscience, and for the next few songs I forgot that it was a family party. I continued dancing freely with my arms in the air and my feet throbbing with pain from the high heels, but I couldn't stop moving, and I knew the reason The masked man had not taken his eyes off me, so during a pause I decided to look at him one more time to confront him, and what I found was a sideways smile that made my cheeks hurt from the heat. That smile clearly said that he liked what he saw. Every time I felt goosebumps and furious heat rising from the pit of my stomach. I knew it was because he was watching me. Suddenly I turned and faced him. Our eyes had locked in a game to see who would make the first move, and for the first time in my life I experienced a surge of burning need that made me take a step in his direction. Is there anything offered to you? The mystery man asked when I got close enough. You want to dance? I asked, for at that distance I could feel the heat flowing from his body to mine. He didn't respond immediately, but his eyes were less discreet as he scanned me from head to toe. Come on, he said with a your voice. He took my hand and guided me to a space in the court that wasn't so crowded. The background music was slow, and my body emulated the rhythm of the sound. Most of the people were crowded at the bar, others were still eating, and the rest of us were on the dance floor. The stranger hadn't said a word since we started dancing, and I wasn't brave enough to start a conversation. I had already taken the first step towards him, so I would wait for him to take the next one, as if he could read my mind. The masked man moved closer to me and cleared his throat before speaking. I didn't see you at first. Are you family? He asked. Yes, I answered. Immediately the music made it alt to carry on a conversation, so I moved closer to him. And you asked, let's say something like that. He responded with an indifferent gesture. I knew that if my mind were not clouded by the influence of lights and music, I would have investigated until I knew who he was, but I stayed quiet and just responded with a smile. I wanted to tell him that I didn't care, that at that moment I just wanted to dance with him, and he understood. Their movements synchronized with mine, and little by little we melted into the track. As the songs played, the sweat and euphoric screams overwhelmed me more and more, but the heat of his presence kept me anchored to the ground, and when I thought that the overwhelming sensations would not intensify, the handsome masked man approached me as if he wanted to wrap me in a protective mantle. The touch was light, but it left a trail of fire in its wake. When his breath warmed the skin of my neck, my hand sought his. As a sign of restraint, I felt on the edge of the abyss, with my entire body orbiting around his. That man was magnetic, and from the moment our eyes met I knew we wanted each other for more than just a dance. Won't you tell me your name? He whispered. His fingers drew random patterns on the fabric. I couldn't tell him my name because I felt like it would break the spell. Why do you want to know my name? I questioned. Isn't it better not to know? His fingers anchored themselves to the fabric. In response, a galaxy exploded in me, causing everything to melt in its presence. I had never felt this way with anyone, and the mysterious masked man seemed to know all the unrevealed secrets of my being. It's okay, he replied back. It's better not to know. The lights in the living room continued to pulse to the rhythm of the music. The dance floor was packed with people, and I couldn't make out my parents. The masked man was dancing behind me, but we had no space to move freely, so every time we moved to the beat of the song, I felt that the heat impregnated my clothes, not only with sweat, but with something else, something that it made me vibrate with longing. The atmosphere was full of energy and heat, and the mass of sweaty bodies dancing and shouting caused the masked man and I to gradually move away from the tumult. My body was tingling from head to toe, and the drinks I had had were making me wobble, but the man's strong hands held me steady, and without resistance I let him guide me out of the room. When the door closed, the long hallway welcomed us. It was poorly lit by wall lamps that seemed dull and dull compared to the rainbow of lights we left behind. The sound of the bass rang in my ears, but I knew it was my heart that was making my body hum. I trembled every time the masked man's hands clung to me. He stopped when he felt that I was no longer walking. "Are you okay?" he asked as he put his arm around me. "Do you want water, or would you prefer that I take you to your room?" "I'm fine," I answered confidently. "I thought you got me out of there to dance somewhere more private." That bold side of me was back again, that side that wasn't afraid to go for what I wanted. He laughed and told me that he had come with his family and that they had not reserved a room. Neither did we. So the crazy side of me that couldn't ignore the fervent longing that was growing thought of a quick solution. "I know where to go," I told him. "Are you 100% sure about this?" I found his question funny, and I couldn't help but laugh. 110%, I responded. Once the laughter subsided, we stumbled towards one of the nearest washes. I didn't notice if it was a man's or a woman's, but it didn't matter. We entered the last cubicle, and he locked the door. Inside, a volcano erupts between the two, splashing hot lava with every touch and every sigh. The space was limited, but we didn't need anything else. He took off his mask at one point, but I couldn't think of it anything other than how magical it felt. I didn't even know his name, but we had connected in a magical and sublime way. Suddenly a tidal wave of sensations overtook me until I became nothing. It had been incredible, and I couldn't wait to see it again. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. I wanted this mysterious man to continue exploring everything. I had to give my heart, my person, but good things always come to an end. And the moment he undid the knot that kept the mask over my face, I knew our moment was over. His eyes widened in understanding as he looked at my face. "You're Cassandra, right?" he whispered with a trembling voice. "Yes." "How do you know my name?" I asked her, surprised. "Damn, I should have insisted more for you to tell me your name. I thought you were part of the protocol staff," he murmured as he walked away from me. I was still so stunned that it took me a few seconds to realize that our magical moment was over. I walked out slowly, not understanding what was happening until I heard him speak again. "Well, Cassandra, technically we are not family," he began with a tremulous voice and a trace of regret in his eyes. "My father married your Aunt Cecilia, and that makes us cousins-in-law," he said. But he seemed to be saying it to himself and not me. Then he continued explaining, "My stepmother showed me a photo of you before coming because we are the same age, I think. This is not bad, right? We are not blood cousins." My mind went blank, but what he had said was true. We weren't blood cousins, and I didn't know him either. What we had done a while ago was not prohibited. "Do you regret it?" I asked in a low voice. I wasn't the type of woman who gets excited that easily, but the connection I felt with him while we danced on the dance floor had been special. He had made me feel beautiful, special. I'd like to say yes, but I don't regret it, he answered honestly. "I would like to meet you if possible. My name is Gabriel." Gabriel gave me his hand, and I shook it back. This introduction felt ridiculous after the flirtation we had earlier, but something told me we should get through this moment. "Cassandra," I answered. "It's a pleasure, Cassandra," he said with a kind smile. In that moment I could really see it. I got to meet the man behind the mask, young like me, with light skin, dark eyes, and a smile decorated with dimples. He was charming and nothing like my Aunt Cecilia, and that was because he and I were not related. There was not a drop of blood linking us, but we had still crossed a line, and I didn't know how we would deal with it. "It's best if we don't talk about this," I finally said, and he seemed satisfied with my answer. "Not to mention it with our family. I will never talk about it, I promise." Gabriel's words relieved me, and just when I was going to leave the wash, he asked me if tomorrow we could go out to meet, but I continued on. I left the bathroom first. As I headed back to the living room, I wondered if this would have been different if I had known that man was A distant relative. If only I had stopped when emotion made us act so recklessly. When I entered the salon, I adjusted my mask and wig, ready to put what had happened behind me, but I couldn't fool myself. I had liked him, and deep down I didn't care that the masked man who had captured my heart was my cousin. The next day, my mother informed me that my Aunt Cecilia will visit us on Monday to introduce us to her new husband and her stepson. I just hoped that our next meeting wouldn't be as forceful as the first. After all, it's not every day you experience a fleeting love with a stranger who turns out to be an in-law, is it? Thank you very much for being there, and please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video if you liked my story.